Hello, this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about, we talked yesterday about how New York has basically had enough with the migrant crisis of the people coming in who've crossed the border and being bused to New York, and it's overwhelming their resources. And Governor Hochul wants help from the federal government. Mayor Adams is like, I don't see it in sight. This is too much on our resources and stuff. After they were so proudly proclaiming to be a sanctuary, city and stuff. But the administration is floating around the idea that they implement some kind of remain in not Mexico policy that Trump had, but a remain in Texas policy. So it seems really messed up because they obviously don't want their own constituents being ticked off at their bad policies, but they can afford to try to force them all to stay in Texas and in red states where they've already had to deal with this issue and have had enough and know that the president and his administration is incompetent. The ladies of the View also had like some things to say about what's going on. And so I just want to play a little snippet of their communication of the geniuses there. Also, a Democrat who was pro Defund the Police was carjacked the other day, and which is awful. But I hope that shows you a little bit that police and trying to rid crime is a good thing, and we need more people trying to stop crime. And a lot of times people will have this rhetoric and not think about how it impacts everyone else. And unfortunately, she found herself to be a victim. So obviously not a good thing, but it's just kind of like life hits you fast, doesn't it? So we'll be talking about that and also some other things as well. But before we check out different content on my website, different articles and videos, etc. Yes, please hit the like button and everything. Thank you guys who are in the chat, who are watching live, and those of you who watch it back later. Very much appreciated. Also check out different merch that's available at blacktnews.com, like this cool Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document. And we got mugs and all sorts of other things as well. So please check out the merch at the store. Please check out some of my books that are available online. Like, of course, God is Bluntly Against Abortion. That's available. It covers theology and rights and all sorts of things. I posted a short this morning and a TikTok yesterday about, someone had made the case, and I kind of wish I hadn't have bothered replying to them, because this is one of those accounts that seems like they have nothing better to do with their life than reply and argue. And I don't find their commentary to be very elevating as far as conversations go. And one that's responds and doesn't want to grow or listen. So they're just all up in my comments. And unfortunately on TikTok, you can't mute people. You can just choose to block them. And I don't know if they've gotten to that level where I want to block them, but I'm sick of seeing them in my notifications. But anyway, they made the case that abortion is okay because it's in the woman's because the baby needs the mother, the resources, and only can depend on the mother. And so people make that argument like, oh, well, it's viable, it's different, and they don't, can't do it because someone else could, because they could survive outside the womb. And you're like, well, someone has to take care of that baby, so they're still dependent. They're like, well, no, someone else could take care of that baby. I don't understand why this still matters with someone's in the womb. Viability doesn't make much sense to me, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole today. But so the argument is, if the child solely needs their mother, then they forfeit their right to life. So I gave a scenario where that doesn't really make sense. And I said, what if you were, abandoned on an island and you were able to radio someone and you knew they're coming in 9 months to rescue you and the baby that you just delivered on the island because you unfortunately happened to get shipwrecked at 9 months pregnant. And so all you have to do is take care of that baby for 9 months. And of course, it can't take care of itself. You have to take care of the baby or it will, not survive. So, would you have the right to bash that baby's skull in with a rock? Most people would say no. So the whole dependency thing, it just doesn't. People don't, I don't think, believe their some of the own ethics that they actually preach about. So she didn't even reply to that. But a friend of mine, well, mutual anyway, just said if you're a leftist, which this person is very pro-life, but they're left leaning. I'm very much on the right, and this person is on the left. And she said if you're a leftist, how can you say a dependency is about a lack of power. So how can you say because you have a lack of power, that person that you depend on has a right to kill you? And I said, that's a really great question there, which is something that I've talked about before. And I've, proposed to people and talked with, and it also talked about in my book and stuff. Like it doesn't make sense that so many people who are for other sort of social duties, like these people believe that a stranger is supposed to take care of you and pay for your health care or help you pay for your health care. They, help you pay for your child care and paid maternity leave and welfare benefits. They believe that the government should get involved between you and your contract with your employer. And instead of you agreeing to, I don't know, a market appropriate wage or whatever, they're like, no, you have to pay this certain amount, regardless if that employer can afford that, because they're like, well, these employees deserve a livable wage. And they're like, a livable wage is more or less what people deserve. And they think that people are owed that, but they don't believe that at the very bare minimum, we have a right to not be killed when we're our very most vulnerable. So to me, it doesn't make sense. If you have that energy of like survival of the fittest, if you can't make it on your own, then that's on you. No one has an obligation to help you at all. Then that would be consistent. But to believe that a mother has no obligation to her child, but a stranger has an obligation to that same woman, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I just encourage people to really think about that. And people will say, well, it's different versus like you taking money from someone or it being taxed and the government paying for social things that help society versus like um you know someone actually being inside of you. And granted, those things are different, but you say your body, your choice. Our income is generated with our labor, which is used with our bodies. So I don't know, it just kind of seems like a convenient way to slip out of something that um you want. um you know but anyway, those conversations are things that are covered in my book, so I encourage you guys to check that out. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I also have fiction books, lots of fiction books, mostly fiction books as well. So you can find all that stuff on blacktnews.com. And if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, cost of stream, on my website, all that stuff. So if you want to support in that way, God bless you, appreciate it. Announcement. So on Monday, I'm going to have a guest actually on the show, and we are mutuals on, TikTok. And but we haven't had a conversation together anyway. So this should be fun. So it's AK Carmana. I'm not sure what his real name is. A lot of people don't go by their real names on social media, but I guess we'll figure that out on the day. But let me just go to his profile. So maybe some of you guys even know him, but he has a pretty decent following on TikTok, as do I. And he is also on Twitter, so I'm going to share his Twitter page. But in his state, in Minnesota, they're talking about possibly doing medical assistance in dying, which they have in Canada. So a lot of people are referencing Canada, and actually like 3% of the deaths in Canada is medical assistance in dying. So he's against it. I'm also not for it. But I know he had some very strong feelings about it himself, and so he's going back and forth, even with some of his followers about it. And but I do know from following him that he's had to deal with struggles with his parents being ill and passing away. So um, dealing with those sort of issues, because some people are like, if you haven't seen it up close and personal, then you don't have a right to talk. You don't know what it's like. And so I've had to I've had sick relatives. I, I mean, I guess who doesn't, but and had to watch some of them, pass away with conditions that you obviously don't want to have to deal with when you die. Um, but the question is, where will this go if we decide that you have the right to take someone else's life? I suppose is the issue. That's worth discussing, because some people have, you know, I don't talk about it a lot, and I guess a lot of pro-life people don't, and a lot of pro-life people don't even share the same view, I guess, on medical assistance in dying or euthanasia. Really, they just talk about the abortion topic. So some people have asked, like, well, I can't really, jive with the opinion of not at least allowing that for those particular situations. So um, why are you against it? And I'm concerned about where it extends, where it leads, and I guess always the slippery slope fallacy, I guess you could say. And again, like in Canada, 3% of their deaths are in medical assistance of dying, and you think it's just supposed to be for people who are terminally ill, to give them some, mercy, I suppose, do a mercy killing when they go. But it's expanded to, there was a story that the Free Press did, Barry Weiss's, or is it Barry Weiss? But they did a story about a mother who found out that her son, who he didn't have a terminal sort of issue. He was going blind, but he was preparing to get medical assistance in dying, and she just kind of stumbled upon it through his like messages or whatever. And so she had to try to figure out a way to save her son's life. And there's people who, it's interesting that people talk about Canada and their healthcare system, and you don't have to pay for anything. Why isn't our system like Canada? Yet there are doctors who will recommend medical assistance in dying to patients because it's expensive to try to keep them alive. Or there's one story where someone had like was just trying to get a lift chair and they couldn't get it, and so they're just like, oh, turn to maid. So I I think there's always issues. Now you can say, well, it's someone's right to be able to do that. Well, if it's someone's right to take their life, why does that only extend to when they're at the end of the road? And if that's the case, that someone can take their life and you feel that they should always have the freedom to do that, that's not the same as someone actually killing them, and just because they have their permission, and us being like, oh, okay, they gave their consent. So you can feel that way as someone at the end of their life. But what would happen if, I don't know, if young adults decided to make a death pact or something? So I know I'm talking a lot of philosophical stuff, but I'm interested in continuing the conversation with someone who's um a little more close to home on the issues, had to go through that up close and personal, and it is his state. So it should be an interesting conversation on Monday. And if you guys have questions about that, and I guess I'll think about it a little bit deeper. And but it should be a good conversation anyway. So something to look forward to on Monday. I just like saw, was looking through his Twitter thread, and I was going back and forth a few folks, and then I just decided to message him, and he saw it, and we just made the agreement. So one thing that someone said in their comments is that we treat animals more humane than this, and we'll put them down. And I said, have you ever considered that the reason why we put animals down and not people is because it's not humane? So I'm interested if she'll respond or not, but we'll see. It's again, interesting conversation. Anyway, I do have an interesting story. Um, on the lighter side of things, I do have an interesting story that made me laugh that I wanted to share you guys with before we got into the politics. So, it's always good when the story starts with Florida man.
Florida man was arrested for using his human-sized hamster wheel to try to run away to England. Coast Guard officials rescued the man 70 miles off the coast of Georgia. That's when officials say the man claimed to have a bomb on board. It took officials days to get him to admit he didn't have a real bomb. Officers were finally able to get him out of that hamster wheel in Miami Beach. Authorities say this is not the first time the man has tried this, saying he's attempted similar trips 3 other times. He's currently facing federal charges.
Let him cook. That's saying just let him live his life. The man just wants to travel to England in a hamster ball. I thought this was America. Obviously he's a bit disturbed because the whole bomb thing, but hamster wheels matter. Florida man. There's all these jokes about Florida having the weirdest people and just the most obscure weird stuff. And then you find some stories like that just affirm, not that there's not weird people in other places, but man, that is a stigma. And thank you for the laugh, Florida man. But if he's terribly mentally disturbed, I hope that he gets help. But several times and he just has a dream. I'm sorry. Anyway, yesterday we talked about again how in New York they're facing a crisis and the governor wants help. She wants Biden to make sure we can get money and for these people and that we can get them into the workforce as fast as possible. You have Mayor Eric Adams, who's just fed up and who's all like pro sanctuary city during these pandemics. These are the people who kept our city going. They were Uber Eats drivers, darn it. And so that was him before. And now it's all, I don't see a way out of this. This is coming to everywhere, every city. And people want me to move them here and people want me to move them there, but it's coming everywhere. And I don't see a way out of this. Just really striking stuff. So you've heard complaints in New York about it. You've heard complaints in Illinois about it. You know how people are putting people up in schools. People are putting up in different hotels and other stuff like that. And folks are just kind of like, you don't treat us as good. So what are y'all doing with our tax dollars and our resources? And with these folks, like this isn't making any sense. Math ain't mathin'. They shouldn't be here, So Abbott, who would bus these people to these different blue cities who claim, sanctuary, blah, 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 was a very amazing tactic. So we talked about that yesterday. So I don't believe that we mentioned that the Biden administration is considering launching a policy to keep them in Texas so they don't wander off, I guess, while they're looking through their asylum claims and so on. And this is interesting because, well, they wanted people to kind of go off on their own before. And they would give them the phones, to track them. And they're like, keep these phones for your court date. So when it's your court date. And they are probably like, oh, cool. They gave me a free phone. And they might be like, let me get rid of this eventually because it's tracking me. So we don't have, I don't know, the smartest people running our country right now. But they didn't want all these people to stay like in these different facilities and stuff because they didn't like the narrative of kids in cages, because that was the Trump administration, which happened actually last time Biden was in the White House during the Obama administration, but everyone was like, oh my gosh, losing their minds when it was a Trump administration. So they don't want to repeat that. They didn't like Ted Cruz and other people showing up with cameras when all these people were in different facilities that were just flooded. They didn't want, people looking at these huge, crowds of people in underpasses, because they couldn't house them in facilities because there's so many people and they couldn't just process them all. So they wanted to release them and spread them out throughout the country, but the problem with them sending these people to these big cities that people probably looked at on TV like, oh, New York, they're probably like, sure, I'll go there, let me sign that waiver and get on the bus, is that it is a burden to the system. It is a huge burden to the system, to their tax dollars, to their resources. Absolutely. And people in Arizona and Texas have been saying that, have been screaming about it, but now it's different. Now it's so different for Biden because it's his people who are ticked off. It's his voters who are ticked off. Now, let's be honest. I don't know if these people are going to wake up and say, you know what? I'm kind of voting against my own interests. People like to tell me that because I'm Black. And they're like, you're voting against your own interests. I'm like, how the heck do you know that? What are my own interests? Please tell me. And, they mean something like affirmative action or whatever. And I'm like, bro, please step away. You don't even know what you're talking about. But people will continue to just, vote blue. So I don't have any, faith that they'll be like, you know what, I should vote for someone who's going to actually secure the border, and federally, and people who don't want to make my city a sanctuary city, who will be more than happy to round up criminals and help them get deported. Like, I don't know if that's going to click in these people's brains because they're so conditioned to vote a particular way. I don't know what will make them snap into reality. I don't know if this is it, but it could be. But in case that it is, Biden can't have these people getting angry. So, of course, they want to keep them in Texas and not remain in Mexico again, like what Trump is doing, but remain in Texas, a state that's already red, that's already had this issue, has already had this problem. And if they issue something federally and Abbott, tries to send them off, they'll probably just sue and try to stop him, which they, stopped him from putting buoys and stuff in the water. So it's just funny. It's just funny and totally, absolutely easy to see through. But the ladies of the View had some interesting thoughts to just add to the conversation about the whole crisis here, and they just, I guess, think that we should just keep spreading people across the country because it's a big country, and I guess you don't think that these cities who have declared themselves to be sanctuary cities should be able to be the ones who bear the burden of their own philosophy.
But frankly, I think we need to find, and we've dealt with this before. I lived in Miami. I was an immigrant in Miami in the 80s. You'll remember when we had the Mariel boat lift. Yes. 125,000 Cubans came in a matter of 6 months. It puts tremendous stress on a city, on a community, on the social services. They need to be resettled elsewhere.
They need to be out. We're this massive country.
Well, and it's only going to get worse with global warming and climate change because people can't live in certain parts of this world.
Get worse with climate change. It's always the climate change, huh? So what's funny about she said 125,000 Cubans came in a matter of 6 months. Oh my gosh. So many people. Here's a little article. The U.S. Border Patrol arrested at least 91,000 migrants who crossed as part of a family group in August, exceeding the prior 1 month record of 84,486 set in May of 2019. During the Trump administration, families were the single largest demographic group crossing the border in August, surpassing the single adults for the first time since Biden took office. Overall, the data show border apprehensions have risen more than 30% for 2 consecutive months, after falling sharply in May and June as the Biden administration rolled out new restrictions and entry opportunities. The Border Patrol made more than 177,000 100,000 arrests along the Mexico border in August, up from 132,652 in July and 99,539 in June. The border crisis right now is insane. And it's been insane and it's been crazy the whole entire time, but there obviously our eyes and the media, their focus isn't on it like it was focused on in the Trump administration, because they like the narrative of the family separating, which a lot of people coming over weren't even coming over with families. They were coming over with they're coyotes that bring people over. We talked about this a lot. They mentioned this on Trump mentioned this on the debate stage, like there's still people who are separated from their families. And he's like, there are people who didn't come with their families. Coyotes brought them over. And grown adult people who commentate on politics, people who are elected into office, we're all like, what do you mean coyotes? Animals? Like Wile E. Coyote? Like, no. And again, I always say this, like, if you don't know what a coyote is, that's fine. But if you made that your central focus of why you hate Trump is the border issue, and you don't even know enough about it to know that coyotes, these traffickers who brought them over, brought over kids and were paid to do that, then you're very emotionally charged instead of factually informed. And you probably voted for the wrong person in 2020. Probably voted for the wrong person in 2020. When people say that, act like it's impossible, that 81 million people voted for Joe Biden, I'm just like, they're out there. I'm like, these people are out there and they're very confused. I promise you. They just were gathered by mail-in voting. And by the time that debate even happened, a lot of people had already even voted, because, people did Google, like, can I switch my vote? Some places you could have, a lot of places too late. And there's a lot of people who wouldn't even go through that drama anyway of switching their vote. So I'm not a big fan of voting early. I think there's a reason why you have election day, but I also don't believe that we're getting rid of multiple election days anytime soon anyway. So regardless of what Vivek Ramaswamy pitches, I just don't think it's gonna happen. But anyway, it's been a big issue, bigger than what Anna there is pitching or talking about or comparing, and it's been consistent. But they don't want you to know, so that's why they wanted them to move on and go other places and just kind of escape into the interior of America. But having them all huddled in New York City and having the governor come to the White House, which the Biden did not meet with her. Having those eyes and those questions at the White House press briefing room, they can't have that. They can't have, the mayor of New York crying about it. They can't have that. They can't, and they definitely can't have a bunch of black people, a bunch of black voters getting together saying, like, this is awful. Why are all they here? Why are they here? There's too many people here. Yeah, using our resources, our money. They can't have that. So they could fix the problem, but it's very clear they don't want to, for whatever reason, because they could at least just try to keep them in Mexico. Try to revisit that. But it's very clear they don't want the problem solved, that they want the illegal immigration for all kinds of different reasons. But they handle this issue so poorly that it's pretty evident that it has to be on purpose. I don't know if you can accidentally run something this poorly. And then the press secretary had the nerve to get up and say, oh, Joe Biden has done the most out of any president to secure the border. Cap. If you don't know what cap means, it's just like, that's a lie. Not true. Oh, Anna. 125,000 Cubans. We're kind of in a different ball game here. Totally different ball game. Anyway, moving on. A far left Minneapolis activist was the victim of a brutal armed carjacking that occurred in the driveway of her home on Tuesday evening. That's crazy. Uh, Shivanthi, gosh, this name, Nadan, a radical leftist and second vice chairwoman of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minneapolis, who was left bruised and bloody during the incident, is calling for her accountability despite her past history of being a notable defund the police agitator. Sathan Nadan said in a Facebook post that she suffered from a broken leg, deep lacerations to her head, and cuts and bruises all over her body when four armed juveniles allegedly beat her to the ground in front of her children and then stole her vehicle in broad daylight, according to KSTP. That is crazy. That is really crazy. She's also a defund advocate. Doesn't mean I'm all Joker, you get what you deserve kind of thing. But this is a life hits you fast, and you know, hopefully people start voting a bit different. Look at my face. Remember me when you were thinking about supporting letting juveniles and young people out of custody to roam our streets instead of holding them accountable for the actions. You could have been reading the obituary for me and my children today. But instead, I'm here to write this. She continued, look at my face. These criminals will not win. We need to take back our city, and this will not be the last time you hear from me about this. Thank you to the incredible Minneapolis 4th Precinct officers, Mayor Frey, Chief O'Hara, paramedics, neighbors, friends, and DFL family who all came to our aid during this terrifying experience. I'm so grateful for this community that wraps us in love. Her comments and her alleged brutal attack imply that she may have reversed course surrounding her previous advocacy to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. In June of 2020, she wrote in a post on Facebook, "We are going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department." Say it with me: dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. As allies, what can we do right now? Listen and learn from our Black siblings. And it's so funny to me. Are white people your siblings too? Are white people your siblings too, or is it just Black people? Because if everyone is your sibling, that's fine. If it's just the other brown people, man, I don't feel that people, it's like these minority groups feel like they can come in together in unity against white people when it's kind of convenient, and then other times there's not like that shared kind of allyship. I don't think so. I don't you don't know what it's like to be Black, and I don't know what it's like to be a different race other than other struggles that we share just as humans that everyone can participate in, and if everyone can empathize with particular experiences, then it doesn't really matter. You don't need to say things like Black anyway, and then amplify this message right now in this moment. MPD has systemically failed the Black community, and they have failed us all of us. It's time to build a new infrastructure that works for all communities. If you are still disagreeing with basic fact, I'm not sure what to say to you. I'm proud of the radical leadership and organizing of Jeremiah Bay Ellison and Felipe Cunningham. If you live in Minneapolis, call and email your city council member to voice your support. If you don't live in Minneapolis, be loud, spread this message, show your support. Now is the moment for change, she wrote. After she shared the incident on Facebook, on her Facebook account, individuals flocked to the comments to ask if she regrets being at the forefront of dismantling the police department, which has left Minneapolis residents in increased danger. Yeah, they ended up cutting back and then had to like undo that, I believe. Um, no one should have this happen to them, children present or otherwise, not ever. Nevertheless, how could Miss Samantha Dan not see this coming, considering the efforts of her party? If you fight for a lawless state, lawlessness happens in broad daylight. One individual wrote, "Sometimes you have to lay in bed, and to lay in the bed you made," said another to the vice chairwoman. "You literally did everything in your power to dismantle the police," another added. "Now you're reaping what you sowed. She is directly responsible for this. She should resign in disgrace," and another individual commented. So that is crazy that this happened like um not only broad daylight, but they said at her home. My gosh. My gosh. In the driveway of her home. People are wilding out, but people feel emboldened to do this crazy stuff when they don't think there's going to be a repercussion. It's just not just a matter of dismantling police, but it's also having a soft on crime prosecutors and a justice system that doesn't care about seeking justice. And it just breeds more terrible behavior. And it makes victims of a lot of people. Yes, there were people going around, activists saying defund the police, and she saw a lot of Black people advocating for that, marching for that, demanding that. With Jacob Frey, they had that video. I played it at the time when they were like, they're like, "Are you open to defunding the police?" And he wouldn't say that, and see, they like booed him off, and he had to like leave. And someone like threw something at him. It was crazy. He just had no control of these people who were demanding such an insane thing. So she saw other people, particularly Black people, advocating for defunding the police and dismantling the police department. They tried it when people talk about defunding the police, they'll try to sugarcoat and we're like, no, we mean just like reinvesting funds in different places. They may mean that to some degree. They may mean that, but they also meant dismantling the police. And I don't think all Democrats who went along with it necessarily believe like dismantling all police or whatever. But they decided to play along and play up with these activists because they wanted their hype, they wanted their energy, and they wanted their support. So instead of saying, no, that's a crazy idea, you have people like Gretchen Whitmer, my governor, who's like, oh, well, I support the spirit of defund the police. No, just say that people need the police. Like when I call the police, I want them there within minutes. And you better have something to protect yourself in the meantime, because minutes can be the difference between life and death. So you need to be able to protect yourself. But yes, call the police when something happens. I last time I called the police, I thought something was awful was happening to someone nearby. It wasn't even for myself. So and it happened so quick. That phone was in my hand. That phone was in my hand. And so the defund the police and BLM movement and stuff started to get, opposition and die down a bit when you had other prominent Black people that were getting on TV like, no, we need, like Tyler Perry was like, no, people like the police, need the police, call the police, and people started looking at other stuff that they were, supporting, like, dismantling the nuclear family and all that other kind of stuff. They don't support policies that are good for society. They look for. And I mentioned this the other day. There's a book called Color, Communism, Common Sense about how the Communist Party would use real grievances, or like racial grievances, to recruit people to communism. But you couldn't have solutions that would actually like solve issues in your community. Like the goal was promoting communism. And if you wanted to defect or something, they would set you up to make sure that you weren't credible and that you would fail or you wouldn't leave or whatever. So, people saying we want to dismantle the police, like, but what about the victims who are victimized by these criminals who have the same skin color or different shades of brown, or or maybe not, maybe they're white people, but all these people being victimized by these criminals in the community? What's going to happen when they don't face some kind of justice because of some things that were horrible that people reacted to, that became national stories? I understand like the emotional appeal, but we don't just decide to just burn down our system for that when it leaves too many people in harm's way. And a lot of these folks know better. I saw this wild tweet today. Let me see if I can find it real quick. That was just like, we're doomed. We're just doomed in so many different ways. And I like to think we're not doomed, but it's just kind of like you don't realize how messed up some people are until it just kind of punches you in the face. So there was a tweet said the liberal weaponization of female empathy has been a disaster for the human race. So then I looked at this tweet, the screenshot of this tweet that I'm going to show you guys. And there's a lot of people out here who want to dismantle prison, which is crazy. So someone had said, something that confuses me about prison abolitionists is how most tend to huff and puff when people bring up rapists, like it's some extreme rare edge case. Rape happens. And someone said, sexual assault victim here. I really wish people would stop using a terrible thing that happened to me to put 1 million people in a cage. And then someone else replied, right? I actively try to get my attacker no prison time. He went into a program instead of prison. I'm proud of that. Now, if you want to forgive someone who did that to you, that's fine. I know someone who's in a situation like that, and they came to pray and forgive their attacker and gave their anger and their grief over to God. And I'm not saying that's not a fine thing to do, good thing to do, or whatever. However, what about another victim, right? Because you might not be the only one. Maybe there's someone else that they assaulted, or maybe there's someone else that they will assault, or the fact that there's a program, get out of jail for rape free card, that they go through, that maybe someone else will want that same path, and they shall be like, well, even if I get caught, it's not going to be a big deal because this path is open to me. So it's even, I mean, you are the victim of that crime, but there's a lot of these people don't always act alone in one instance. And there's also like the deterrent effect and the ripple that happens. They can also find redemption in jail. So I agree with that comment that the weaponization of female empathy is really bad. And we see it all the time. We see it all the time. I mean, isn't that what's happening with a lot with the transgender issue? Like there's plenty of women who are like, no, don't come in my bathroom or whatever. And then there's other people who are like, oh no, that's totally fine. If they can go ahead and destroy our sports, they can come in with their penis out in my spa, it's fine. No, I think not. Nope. Mm-mm. Or abortion is a really twisted one, because they'll, I don't think there's any really good logical reasons that really track as far as supporting abortion. I think, but you can have emotional arguments that are really good because people will empathize with those arguments. So people will bring up, really terrible personal experiences or hypothetical experiences to really tug at people's heartstrings, and they'll use like really edge, cases that are, unlikely to happen to justify every single abortion, which is really really nuts. But they'll turn it into well, we're compassionate, that's why we support this, and you're not. when we're just looking at it from the other side and like, no, what about victims and justice and human rights? So things get really blurry when you can't see past your feelings, like the border issue. The border, like, it's so mean to keep out them all out. Just build the wall is so mean. Why would you do that? And but you're incentivizing all these people to come. You incentivize these coyotes to bring these children. And by the way, these people are like sexually assaulted along the way. You have and another reason why these people are disconnected from their families and haven't been reunited because they didn't come over with families. People get trafficked. You have all these drugs coming in, and then it's a burden to our society. It is. New York knows that. Texas already knew that. Arizona already knew that. They already knew that. But they're like, it's just so mean. It's just so mean to make people wait in line. What about the people who are waiting in line? Don't you think it's rude to cut? I always thought it was rude to cut. I always thought it was rude. Some people, it kind of still amazes me when people just have the nerve, grown adult people just cut in a line, like a fast checkout line in a grocery store or something. I'm like, really? I'm the kind of person who would say something though. Like, excuse me, line starts back there. But they're like, it's just so mean. It's just so mean. Trump was so mean. I saw a TikTok my sister sent me of a comedian, and they were saying like, oh, walls are mean. We should do a maze. A maze would be fun. They say that was inhumane too. People obviously couldn't find their way out of it. But people just can't. They're emotionally charged again rather than factually informed. And I critical race theory as well. When I went to a Democrat Party picnic and they didn't know I was a Republican, and they were talking about CRT, and they were just trying to recruit people to run for school boards and stuff because Republicans were recruiting people for school boards and stuff. And so I talked about, I'm like, do you guys really want to push this? And I'm like, I don't know how much you guys have looked into it, but and the chair of the Oakland County Democrat Party, she admitted she hadn't looked into it. So I obviously knew more about it than she did. So I tried to break it down, what CRT was and some of the tenets and other stuff. And she was just like, it's racism. These people are racist. I know them. They're foaming at the mouth. I've looked into their eye, like their race, etc. Blah, blah, blah. And she doesn't have the knowledge that I have about the subject again. And she doesn't know that I know a lot of these people who are concerned and not foaming at the mouth. I guess some of them could because they're so angry, but most of them are just really concerned parents trying to understand. I actually spoke at an event about CRT, and people were very thoughtful and asked questions. They're concerned about the ideology, and it's not. And I said, no, CRT is teaching racism, but it was cute how she tried to go use a racist card. I'm sure because I'm black and she was white. And once you mention racism, I have to go, oh my gosh, you're right. I have to abandon all of my knowledge and my principles and just do what you say because I'm black. It doesn't work like that. But when you think someone's just going to be emotionally charged rather than factually informed, that's what happens. That's what happens. I also want to mention, since we're on this subject, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, someone had it kills me when people will ask me, like, what is it that Republicans have done for you? And they mean specifically, like, as a black person, or they'll say, what, as a black person, what have they done for you? And they're thinking about things like, well, they just got rid of the courts just got rid of affirmative action, and that helps you get into a college better or something like that. And so they're probably thinking something very racially specific along those lines that they're hoping that has helped me, or they assume hasn't helped me. So last time, well, not the last time, but one of the last times someone asked me that question, I said, well, President Donald Trump did appoint 3 Supreme Court justices who were conservative. And so when Biden was pushing his OSHA mandates that was forcing everyone to either get the jab, or if you didn't get the jab, because people are like, they didn't force everybody to get the jab. This is what it was. If you don't remember, like a year or two ago, the OSHA mandate was that you have to either get a jab or you have to continuously get tested. And your employers wouldn't be forced to pay for those tests. So you could be out of pocket for that yourself. Right. So, and I was assume that they'd make you be out of pocket for it, which this didn't take into account if anyone already had an infection and had natural immunity or anything like that. It didn't take that into account. It didn't take into account that the actual jab doesn't stop the spread. It didn't take into account that someone else may have gotten the jab and they're not being consistently tested, but the people who just aren't jabbed have to be consistently tested. So the whole point of the OSHA mandate was just to force people to break their will to just go ahead and get the jab. That's what it was for. It wasn't for protecting people, because it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any logical sense. And so that's what Biden was forcing and pushing. And so that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I mentioned how my one of my sisters was concerned about her job and whether she's gonna be able to keep it because of this policy. And a lot of other people obviously felt the same way. They're concerned about whether they just have to break down. A lot of people did break down to get the jab, but my sister was concerned about that. And we were waiting, and she would ask me, like, what should I say or what should I do? I'm like, say this in an email, say this in an email, say this in an email, and we were going back, and she was going back and forth, and, I was trying to help her and stuff. So the Supreme Court ended up striking down that illegal OSHA mandate. But if we didn't win that election in 2016 and Trump didn't appoint those justices, then we would have lost that. And you would have lost some of your liberties, and you would have lost some of your freedoms that day. So that's a direct example. And they didn't like that answer. I'm like, but that's a real answer. And the answer didn't include, oh yeah, and I'm Black. That's just pretty obvious. But I think the policies that I support are pretty much good across the board, and not just specifically because I'm a Black woman. So when a lot of people ask, like, well, why do you vote this? Because and you're voting against your own interests. You assume that because you perceive that as a minority, I have to get some kind of special status or special interest to be able to survive in a white man's world. And no, I'm very capable. I would just very much prefer for the government not to trample on my freaking liberties. Is that too much to ask for? And so I want to support a party that would at least try to do that. Republicans aren't perfect. Yeah, so there's an example there. So when people ask, like, what do they do, they're thinking in racial lines. But I'm well aware that I'm a minority. I'm well aware that I'm Black. People, regardless of the name Black T, that's what the Black is for. But people remind me, people, even if I wanted to live my life, as a non-racial person, people still impose what they see, upon me, and I have to react and respond and talk about it. So it is what it is. A colorblind society is nice in theory and premise. People clearly don't want that, though. They clearly don't want that, though. But yeah, my interests are the same as probably most other Americans, regardless of color. But speaking of the COVID vaccine, and before I play this clip, I do want to thank, I have a super chat that came in from a KT Rainbow. So thank you very much for that super chat. I very much appreciate it. Thank you. I saw that Megyn Kelly said that she regretted taking the vaccine. I didn't see her whole interview about it, but there's a clip that's circulating around, so I'm just going to play that little clip. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised about this at all, and I'm sure there's more women like her in this predicament.
Even though I'm a 52-year-old woman, because I don't think I needed it. I think I would have been fine. I'd got COVID many times, and it was well past when the vaccine was doing what it was supposed to be doing. And then for the first time, I tested positive for an autoimmune issue at my annual physical. And I went to the best rheumatologist in New York, and I asked her, do you think this could have to do with the fact that I got the damn booster and then got COVID within 3 weeks? And she said, yes. Yes, I wasn't the only one she'd seen that with.
So, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that there's people, finding out that they're having particular issues that maybe they didn't have before, and that there are doctors willing to be more honest about it. I'm sure you guys have noticed that there's more talk about masks. Perhaps you've seen people starting to wear masks. It's not like in mass, but I've seen a couple people here and there, like, McDonald's and other places, that are starting to mask up. Of course, Biden is masking up. It's funny. He'll walk into a room with a mask, and then and wasn't probably wearing it before he entered the room, like put it on to enter a room, and then he'll take it off, when he's around people and starting to talk to people. So there's just no consistency, even about the theater of all of this. We know masks don't work. There's a school, somewhere in the country where they're starting to say that children have to wear N95 masks. Those masks, even N95, do not protect you. Even those don't protect you. Especially kids. Those things, masks need to be like fitted to your face, and people, especially kids, will touch your face all day long. It just does not help. And kids, out of everyone, are more likely to be okay. More likely to be okay. And Thomas Massey shared a tweet. Let me pull up his tweet. Someone asked a question about have I looked into Dr. Joseph Samson and his resolution as a jab as a bio weapon. I have not seen that. I haven't seen that. But Thomas Massey was talking about the vax and the cycle, the CDC, and kids getting the jab and who's getting paid for it. Let me see. I have found it. Give me 1 second. Okay, the CDC is set to purchase 20 million pediatric COVID-19 vaccinations worth over 1.8 billion. The order was preemptively organized in June, predicting a surge in September. So Massey retweeted it and said, criminal, those are 1.8 billion taxpayer dollars that will go to one of the two pharmaceutical companies for a drug that isn't needed and can in fact be harmful to children. And that's true. That is true. I don't understand the push that there still is out in society. The commercials that I see, like from my state government, still pushing like, get it for your kids. And I'm like, why? Why? I'm not saying that people shouldn't get other kinds of vaccines or whatever, but for them to get any that they don't need, is really absurd to me. It's really absurd to me. Do you guys remember they're like, you need to get yours because you can infect me? I'm like, didn't you get yours? What's the point of yours? What's the point of yours if I can still give it to you? You know, it's fun. It's so funny to me, and I've mentioned this before. That that I've seen like on TikTok lives and stuff. I think particularly there was one with this guy Good Trouble. He's a really big following, but I think he was debating somebody, and they're just like, "Did you get the jab?" And I think it was Good Trouble. Let me just say I think, because I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was him. And he's like, "Did you get the jab?" He's not the only one I've seen do this though. And there and and he's smiling like, you're a crazy person because you didn't get it. And I'm just thinking like, bro, we're alive. We lived. Like we played the game and we won. So what does it matter? if we didn't get it, we are still alive. We rolled the dice. Like, so how are you dunking on people who didn't jab themselves with something they didn't want to jab themselves and didn't face a repercussion for it? It'd be different if you obviously you wouldn't be talking to someone who didn't make it, but you're talking to people who have. So why are you mocking people for not taking something that wouldn't stop the spread? But so many people are so determined to still be right that they think it's some kind of I don't know, IQ booster that they went along with the popular narrative of getting it. And it's if you got one, it's fine. Especially if you have if you're older, if you have, a comorbidity, like, I'm a hefty gal, I'm more of in a danger zone, but that's your risk to take. That's your risk to take. So Megyn Kelly, she said, she's a fit woman, but she's in her 50s. And so, but she took it and she took the booster and she regrets it. She regrets it because she thinks it's had other sort of impacts, and her doctors confirmed that they think that's what it is. When people who've been following me for a while know that my dad had COVID, and he got it before any vaccine came out. So just so you know, and he was pretty much at home, and he got it, and well, he got sick. He had to go to the hospital. They put him in the COVID ward before they tested him, but is what it is. But he had a very rough time, and when they wanted him to get it later, we're like, you react so badly to medicine. We'd rather you not. But his doctors were trying to like push it and stuff, and we're like, you had it. You have, you should be okay. Those antibodies or whatever. And they tested him, and he was like in the clear. But they still really want people to take it. But how they push on these kids so unnecessarily is that should make your red flags go up. But it going on the childhood vaccination approval, whatever, that helps it to get immunity. So if you have any issues and you want to sue them, good luck. You're not going to be suing Pfizer or whoever. You're going to be, trying to get a fund that your taxpayer dollars are already allocated toward. So I get this is probably just a part of legitimizing the decisions that they already made. So they'll continue to push it. I don't know if we can get to a level where they're like, let's lock down the country and all that stuff again. I don't think we're ready for round 2 of that. But there are folks pushing the mask. Whoopi Goldberg's not on The View right now. She like sent a video message or whatever. They played it. She's at her house or something, but she had a mask on, and she's like, let me take it off so you guys know it's me. And I'm just like, why is she alone in her room? Like, why is she wearing a mask? No, maybe there's a crew around her or whatever, but it just, theatrics. Especially, and it wasn't an N95 mask. It was just a regular surgical mask. The ones that you buy in all the boxes, that doesn't protect you from COVID-19. So just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But anyway, I thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, enjoyed the conversation. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs to stream, it costs to run my website and all that stuff. So I do thank you for those of you who do support and who have supported. I do have some needs here at blacktnews.com. So if you would like to support, again, Bible says you have not because you ask not. So I am asking if you can appreciate it. This weekend, on Sunday, if you are in Michigan or you live close by, I very strongly encourage you to come out to the Brighter Michigan PAC's event. It's a America Safety First event. We throw it every year and we honor first responders. We give out scholarships and have a really good time. This year is our biggest event, and it's gonna have Tucker Carlson as our keynote speaker. So I encourage you guys to come. It's for a really good cause. Brighter Michigan PAC, it's a group of all volunteers. Money goes back into conservative causes, conservative funds, uplifting, good candidates and stuff. And Michigan, we don't, just to be blunt, we don't have great infrastructure right now, election wise. So we're going to need organizations like the Brighter Michigan PAC to really help rebuild Michigan for our elections. So we need that help. So whether you're in Michigan or from Illinois or Ohio, whatever, and you like to drive up there for the event, I hope to see you there. It's at the Jimmy John Field in Utica, and it's at 1 p.m. I do have a little teeny spot that's 15 seconds long, so I'll just show it real quick. The biggest name in media is coming to Michigan for one day only. Tucker Carlson. See Tucker Carlson live September the 10th at Jimmy John's Field in Utica, Michigan. Visit Brighter MI for tickets starting at $50. Get your tickets at brightermi.com. So tickets do start at $50 and go to brightermi.com to get your ticket. If you would, I do have a link that will give you a discount on tickets. That'll be $20 cheaper for the tickets that are like in the grandstand area. Those aren't $50 tickets. It'll be like $100 taken down to like an $80 ticket. So if you want to take advantage of that, there's a link if you're on Facebook or YouTube in the description that you can use with my name's like in the link when you click on it. So you guys can do that. Otherwise, you guys can just go to the website and get your own ticket wherever you want. I think there could still be VIP seats where you can get a picture with Tucker and meet him and stuff. So go ahead to the website to find that out, to find that information out. It's going to be a really cool event, great event. And again, I hope that you guys will come and support Brighter Michigan. When I was in the studio like every day, that was such a godsend, and they don't even know how much of a godsend it was at the time. But I was just so grateful to them as I was growing my following, and they just wanted to help. So they are part of my success, and I do appreciate them and their heart for just doing the right thing. And then we had an event a couple months ago where we were just raising money for the Fallen and Wounded Soldiers Fund. Nobody in the PAC got anything for that. We just raised them. We volunteered and helped to throw on the party to raise money for vets and their families. So it's a great group of people. It's a great organization. And this is the big fundraiser of the year for them. And I just like you to support them. And frankly, we need your support. So even if you're not interested in going, if you know someone from Michigan or in the area who would like to go, please make sure that you spread the word and you tell them about it. So they do think about coming, and maybe you can't go, but you want to spot on the ticket or something. That's amazing too. So it should be a cool event. And I hope to see you guys there. It'll be awesome. Also, again, check out my merch. It's the weekend. So guys, consider reading a book this weekend. Someone had reached out to me and asked me some questions about writing and stuff. And they said they kind of needed some help kind of maturing their work. And I said, well, the best way you can really do that is to read some other works yourself. So that was the, advice I gave and stuff. Went in, reading helped me to be like, I can do this, to give me the confidence to be able to go out and write myself. So I'm gonna actually turn around and read what I wrote. And again, I have 17 books. 2 are nonfiction and the rest are fiction. this is one that I have right here. I hope to have the next one out when I go to Motor City Comic Con this year. So I'm working on it. But I have a paranormal romance, contemporary fantasy, historical fiction fantasy. I'm just trying to, here's my picture with 15 of my books anyway. So I got a lot. I got, my children's books, middle grade chapter books that are really fun. Usually people 8 to 10 usually read it. Really cool story, inspired by my dad, actually. And then of course God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So go ahead and check out my stuff. God bless you guys. And again, I'll see you on Monday, and I'll have a special guest, and we'll talk about, what's going on in Minnesota, and the possibility of, medical assistance in dying. And I'm sure we'll talk about the impact that it's had on Canada and other things going on in that state. So it should be a fun conversation, and I'm looking forward to my guest, and I'll see you next time. Have a good weekend.